Okay, I've waited long enough to make this video. We're going to talk about the 2025 Baltimore Orioles and the interesting season that went off the rails and certainly didn't meet expectations. Before I get too deep in this video, I don't know how long this video is going to be. I have no script. I don't know what direction this is going to take. But I want to give a personal shout out to Oriole Birdwatcher because when this season went off the rails, sitting in his streams as he called the games and being a part of his community made this season much easier. That being said, so thank you, Oriole Birdwatcher. Thank you, BW. That being said, where to start with the 2025 Baltimore Orioles? I guess let's start at the beginning. The fact that this is a team that, according to many publications, were projected to be the World Series favorite out of the American League. There were more than one publication that had this team going to the World Series. Now, and that was after not re-signing Corbin Burns, not bringing in anybody significant in the offseason. Now, Grayson Rodriguez getting hurt to start the year and never throwing a pitch in the 2025 season, in the regular season for the Orioles, did not help this team at all. With a team that was already struggling pitching-wise, to lose their de facto ace before he ever threw a pitch was devastating. Especially when you knew you weren't going to have Corbin Burns. You knew you weren't going to have Kyle Bradish and Tyler Wells till at least July. So you knew you were behind the eight ball. The Orioles did sign Sagano, who was, and I read this in multiple publications. Again, I had no prior knowledge of how he was in Japan, but I've seen people call him the Japanese Greg Maddux. Now, that's a very high bar because there are people that could argue Greg Maddux is the greatest right-handed pitcher of all time. But I understand the point. They're saying this guy's a control artist, hits his spots, doesn't walk people. But again, 35 years old, first time pitching in the majors, you don't know how he's going to do. So, question mark there. You have Charlie Morton. Charlie Morton, I've always been a fan of Charlie Morton. I used to call Charlie Morton a poor man's Doc Holliday, or Roy Halladay, if you people don't know his nickname. But that was 5, 6, 7 years ago. I would have been thrilled to have Charlie Morton even 2, 3, 4 years ago. But this Charlie Morton, it pained me to watch this man pitch. Because I could see a man that, he said it in that one post-game interview. He didn't understand because he felt like the stuff was there. It just wasn't connecting. And I hope I don't take heat for this, but when I watched that interview, the only thing I could think of was Old Yeller. Put Old Yeller out of his misery. And to fast forward a little bit, the Detroit Tigers did that after they traded for him because He lasted, less than a month with the Tigers, and he got DFA'd from the Tigers. So I wish Charlie Morton well in his future endeavors, but he will not be remembered as a great Oriole signee. Now, if reports are to be believed, the Orioles offered Corbin Burnes somewhere between 40 and 45 million a year. My question is then, why did you not take that money or a decent portion of that money and throw it at a guy like a Max Fried? Now, Max Fried, there's no way I'm giving any pitcher 5, 6, 7 years. Their arms are too volatile. Like, the Yankees are going to be paying for it on the back end of that contract. But there had to be better options out there. But forget about, and then the bullpen was atrocious, with the possible exception of Keegan Aiken. Keegan Aiken really showed me something this year, but Yennier Cano and just everybody in that bullpen, with the exception of Brian Baker, up until the point where we traded Brian Baker, which was a smart move because we got a solid draft pick for a guy who, was playing probably over his head and wasn't going to keep producing at that level. And he showed that with Tampa because he kind of hit a wall once he got to Tampa. But the bullpen was a mess. Felix Bautista was not Felix Bautista. And he's not going to be Felix Bautista next year because this is old news at this point. He's not going to be there next year. I'm going to go on a limb and say I don't think Felix Bautista throws another pitch for the Orioles. As a matter of fact, this makes me want to circle back to guys like Grayson Rodriguez, Tyler Wells. Two guys that, depending on what the Orioles do in free agency, I wouldn't mind seeing the new manager, which we'll circle back to Brandon Hyde in a second, but whoever the new manager is, I wouldn't mind seeing him give Grayson Rodriguez or Tyler Wells a run at the closer spot. But you heard me mention new manager. Why do we need a new manager? Because Brandon Hyde obviously got let go. Now, I am not going to ever be a channel that's going to lean into speculation for clicks. I'm just not going to do that. That's not my style. I will just leave this out there and, people that are in the know or have read it can surmise what they want. But I have serious doubts whether Brandon Hyde's mind was on his job when he was still the manager of the Orioles. And I'm going to leave that there. Based off what I heard, I would understand if his mind was not on the job. But the Orioles, if that was the case, suffered for that. Tony Mansolino, loved the guy. Thought he did a decent to above average job. I think that Tony will probably get an interview, but I do see, or at least hope, this team goes in a different direction for the ball club. I think this team needs a veteran manager or that can rattle the cages of these young players, because here's the bottom line with the Orioles in 2025 and really the Orioles going forward in 2026. You can rebuild that bullpen all you want. You could have, what? Let's see. You could have 8 brand new pitchers in that bullpen. And rebuild it, and you could rebuild that rotation, bring in 1 or 2, 3 starters. But at the end of the day, if the Orioles' young core does not progress and come through in clutch situations and stop striking out so much and not getting the team productive outs, advancing the runners and sacrifice flies and, not just swinging and missing so much or just looking at balls right down the middle of the plate. If they don't do that, it's not going to matter what the Orioles do in the offseason. Gunnar Henderson down here. Jordan Westburg, who I have always believed is the spark plug for this offense. Well, you can't be much of a spark plug for the offense if you're constantly getting hurt. He's got to stay healthy. Gunner's got to bounce back. If he wants to be a $4, $5, $6, $700 million player, he's got to produce like a $4, $5, $6, $700 million player. And if and then there is Adley. I don't know. After that first year and a half that he was called up, I don't know what has happened to him. But to use a saying that Pigtown Sports, great follow by the way, subscribe to him on YouTube, follow him on Twitter. The guy knows his stuff. But to use a saying that Pigtown Sports uses, Adley needs to put all the baseball gear in the shed for 2-3 months and just reset his brain, because something is going on with Adley. I don't think it's physical. I think it's up here, unfortunately. And yeah, the bottom line is the young core has to progress and produce. Have the Orioles overvalued our young players? Who knows? We could have. And we could have missed some major windows to trade off some of these young talents for players that could help us. We may have missed that window, because you name me a young player with the exception of Samuel Basayo that value hasn't decreased because of their production and health in the last, I'd say, year and a half of baseball. It's not a good look coming into 2026, and I'm going to be very interested to see what this front office does. Let me know what you think the team should do. Leave comments in the video, like, subscribe, and we'll hit you back with another one when we have, some more concrete information to talk about. Who do you think the next manager is going to be? I would like to see Joe Madden get an interview. I don't know why he's not getting talked about, but let me know what you guys think. Talk to you later, Birdland.